something
clearly
like
a
that,
strong
you've
factor
done well.
around here, and a lot of the
Yes,
drivers
that's
talking about
exactly
getting their tyres into the right window, working on not
Used to
necessarily
be
the
the
warm-up, but the
Pinky
prep
Tuscaderas
of the
were the ones
tyres
that
is going to be
wanted it.
super
No.
important. So let's see who can
Just
make
the
it
hard
work.
way.
But yes,
How do you
turn
say
8 to
Pinky
14,
Tuscadero
can they
with a
make those
straight
tyres
face?
last?
Well, let's hope that
It's
this
such a
win is
ridiculous
a
thing.
levelling factor. At the moment, it does look like advantage
Jeremy with
McLaren.
ace 10
Certainly, they've
gets a
been the
loss with ace 10
strongest
suited.
in all 3 of the practice sessions so far. But you just never know. Qualifying for the Bahrain Grand Prix is next.
Fuck ass McLaren gonna be on pole, yeah. No way. No way.
Audi sponsors Formula One on Sky Sports.
Watching poker right now.
At Wren, we design kitchens to your budget, not ours. So get up to 60% off fully built kitchen units with up to 7 years
They're working
interest-free
hard on
credit.
figuring out
Plus,
how many
in
chips
our
they have.
spring sale, you can get an AEG
10-4
dishwasher
off.
for just
Let's go.
$149. Go on, your
Jeremy,
dream
7 and
kitchen
5.
awaits.
Right.
This is luxury for all, affordable for all.
Volt.
This
Scott
is
gets
the great
7 and
renovation.
Usually when people start talking so much about how many
Sometimes
chips everybody
for
has,
point in
yeah,
life, if
they're
you can just
getting ready to talk
randomly.
about some kind of deal. Is that something that happens on WPT Final
You
Team?
never
Yeah,
think
I mean,
that you're
it's
going to have
not
to
that
do it
common,
on the love of your life.
We are open to players making deals.
I remember the day that they
but
woke you
at
up
the
from
same
that
time, you have to
coma
play for
and we got the
something. You're
phone
not gonna
call
just,
and you recognised me.
in the
It was
tournament
just
like you
the
do
best
sometimes.
moment.
So, you know, they have that $10,000 seat again in play. And of course, you know, more importantly to a guy like me would be putting my name on that Mike Sexton Champions Cup. But
No, that matters to Scott.
yeah.
I'm sure it matters to the
Formula
two
One.
players too.
Yes, of course.
And I
But, 361,000.
can challenge
Would
what
be
we
nice.
believe is possible,
Of course, that's what really matters.
changing our perspective on the world around us.
Jeremy makes it
At Airwallex,
500,000.
315 perspective on global finance,
It's gotta be in this.
helping customers like McLaren seamlessly do business around
Just,
the
For
world.
how much?
Yeah, just a
Air
question
Wallets.
if he's going to make it one.
Proud
Or
of
he's
the
gonna just
McLaren
call.
Formula One
Gonna
team.
call immediately. 500.
And Alejandro with 10-6. Let's go.
10-6 votes.
All right, we'll go to flop. So one
River
flop,
ace 9,
4,
4 and ace.
and a 9. No diamonds. Jeremy has position in his pot. It's been checked to him.
Whack, whack, whack.
That is 1 million. That'll win pot.
Votes? Wow. That's skibidi.
Welcome everybody, it's the Bahrain Grand Prix, round 4 of this Formula One season in 2025, where if you include the sprint race from China, we've had 4 different pole sitters so far. And like it was in Suzuka 7 days ago, McLaren have led every practice session so far. So is Max Verstappen about to spoil the papaya party, or will Oscar Piastri double down on a dominant lap that he produced during FP3? And can his teammate Lando Norris rise to the occasion and claim possibly a second pole of the season
Rise
for
to the
him?
occasion.
We'll
There's
find
no
out in just
occasion.
over an
There's
hour's
just
time
McLaren
around this
domination.
3.36
There's nothing else.
miles
There's
circuit.
nothing in it.
3 DRS zones and a punishing surface that is cooking these tyres. Sometimes to perfection, sometimes a little too well done. Soft tyre for qualifying is the
Nice.
C3, medium
Good-
is the
good
C2,
call.
C1 is the hards. And Bahrain
C1?
is a venue
My God.
Formula One
You
has
should've
been
put
to
that
and
C2.
raced at on 21 previous occasions. That's 20 Bahrain Grand Prix and the Sakhir Grand Prix as well, where we used a different parts of this track. 5 FIA Grade 1 circuits, all within the same track, but it's the traditional Grand Prix track we're focusing on tonight, Martin Brundle. And for McLaren, the focus is make sure we get at the top of the grid and don't have a repeat of Suzuka.
Yes, you still want to be on the front run of the grid, albeit a long way down to the first corner at the start of tomorrow's race when you're punching a hole in the air for your rivals, but it's still
31
better to
degrees.
be out front and out of as much danger as you can be. Now, I don't know how many miles you get out of a set of tyres at home, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 miles, some people, if you're careful. But tonight, they need to get 3.5 miles out of a set of tyres and have them still intact at the end of the lap, the qualifying tyres, when they're pushing hard. And that's what happens when you put 1,000 horsepower through your rear tyres and 5G through the corners, similar amounts of energy under braking as well. It's a torturous lap, particularly for the rear tyres. So it is get on with it, but make sure you've got some tyres left for the last few corners.
Now, there are 1,120, I'm reliably informed, palm trees around the circuit here in Bahrain. I'm not sure how many flags there are, but all of them are fluttering quite lively in the breeze. The breeze has picked up from this afternoon. It's gusting a headwind down the main straight, which is good for the drivers, but there are other corners where there's going to be one heck of a helping hand from the wind as you go in there.
Yeah, you've got it's a clockwise circuit. You'll end up, of course, doing more right-handers than lefts to get back to the beginning. But some of them are really exposed. Up at turn 4 would be a good example. Turn 13, the top of the hill, basically, less so down the pit straight here. But these cars are long, well over 5 meters long, sort of limousine length long, actually. And sideways on, when they're doing 190 miles an hour, there's an awful lot of sail to catch that crosswind.
Lando Norris then leads the championship by 1 point, just the 1 point, the first McLaren driver to lead the Drivers' Championship since Lewis Hamilton after the 2012 Canadian Grand Prix. There's a little more breathing space for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship.
That's a long time ago.
Gap then over Mercedes, 36 points, with Red Bull third and Ferrari fourth. And on the subject of Ferrari, Fernando Alonso's old team, what can they produce out of qualifying? Yes, Charles Leclerc was the only driver within a second of Oscar Piastri that wasn't in a McLaren, but they've not looked on the pace all weekend long.
They're struggling, aren't they? They're going through a phase at Ferrari like they did the middle of last season, where they got a little bit lost, and they're saying it'll take us some time to fully establish why and how to fix it in a season of relentless racing. We're into a triple header here, and also cost cap era, what have you, but there'll be a lot of pressure to get that sorted out, as many cars then want to get down to the end of the pit lane, maybe lose a little bit of tyre temperature and therefore pressure. But interestingly, for the first time we can remember for a very long time, they've reduced the rear tyre pressures here. They're normally going up and up all weekend, but that'll help traction enormously. It's like a 5% reduction of the rear tyre pressure, which means you get more surface on the racetrack, more traction, more grip, and as I pointed out in the beginning, heat. It is what they call a rear limited. It's when your rear tyres are under more pressure than your front tyres.
We just saw Nico Hülkenberg scooting out of the garage in his Sauber. Hülkenberg celebrating 15 years in Formula One. He made his debut here in the 2010 Bahrain Grand Prix. He's the 15th driver in Formula One, still to be racing in the sport 15 years after his debut, and he's 15th on the all-time starts list with 230 Grand Prix starts to his name so far. So what's the betting, Ted Kravitz, that with all those numbers, he qualifies 15th tonight?
Hello, Crofty. Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody from the pit lane. Well, I mean, he was 19th. Sorry to spoil your 15th party there in free practice 3, but then he didn't get very many laps in because of a systems problem on his Sauber. They have fixed it. It was fairly straightforward, but did take a little bit of time. So Hülkenberg with pretty much no qualifying preparation. You could say the same for Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull. It's been a bit of a torrid weekend so far for Yuki, and he was the one who did free practice 1. Didn't even miss it like Max Verstappen, but he's really struggled to get on the pace. He was 20th and last, so I think he might throw at least 2 sets of new softs at the car in this Q1 session. They're on their back foot, as are the Aston Martins. That's why they've gone out early. But Ollie Behrman was only 16th in free practice 3. He's hoping that was just a bit of a glitch. They are aiming for at least one car in the top 10 at Hassan.
Let's see what happens. Hülkenberg came out, by the way, just in front of Fernando Alonso, who was the driver that won the 2010 Bahrain Grand Prix, and like Nico, still racing as hard as he can to this day.
Now this surface, it's been down 21 years now, and it's got a very open texture to give grip in sandy conditions out in the desert here. but it hasn't been ironed and made into a billiard table like we saw in the first sector in Japan last weekend. It's got a bit of character about it and a few little bumps. It still looks like a very good surface. This racetrack, highly unusually in Formula 1, is older than 4 of the drivers on the grid.
What the fuck? Okay.
And I like that because I hate it when we iron our racetracks at every opportunity.
I'm with you. As much as it was lovely to see Shanghai completely resurfaced, we needed some softer tyres to make it into a better race, and you can probably repeat that process for Suzuka with that first sector being resurfaced there. I did actually ask just a couple of days ago, are they ever thinking about resurfacing this track? And from time to time, the conversation crops up, but they don't need to. They've smoothed out a couple of bumps on the main straight, and they've smoothed out a bump at turn 9. But as you can see from Hulkenberg-Sauber there's plenty of bumps to keep the drivers alert.
I don't know who put it down, but I wish they'd do the M11, M1, and in fact every M and A road in the UK.
Oh, wow.
Well, Sir Jackie Stewart was responsible for a lot of the organisation of bringing the track to Bahrain, which took 496 days to build. On the subject of Sir Jackie Stewart, watch out tomorrow. He's going to drive his 1973 championship-winning Tyrrell around this racetrack at the age of 85. I did catch up with him. I said, are you going to push it? You going to give us a proper record-breaking lap? He's just winked and said he might try.
Yeah,
that's going to be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. With a crash helmet on, signed by all of the living world champions.
Wow.
All of the living world champions.
Wow, what a crash helmet.
It's a fascinating one.
Isn't it just? Talk about that a little while. 1:32.3 for Fernando Alonso. That's kind of the benchmark lap time for others to chase. And Stroll and Gasly and Hadjar and Verstappen and Doohan and Lawson and Behrman and Tsunoda are all out on the track, and that is Esteban Ocon.
Lance Stroll, you're fucking trolling again.
To the Haas. I just wonder, has Esteban Ocon had a bit of a seat change, or has the seat been a bit loose and it requires just a bit of fettling from the crew?
There's a lot of pumps and control units in there as well. They might have had to have had a look at underneath the seat. Quite how Esteban Ocon folds himself in one of these cars. He must be so compromised because he's such a tall lad. And George Russell struggles as well. It sort of splay his knees out, but somehow they don't let it slow them down.
Lance Stroll's had his lap time deleted, so it's wasted a set of soft tyres there. Just making his way over the start-finish line is Max Verstappen. So let's see how he fares. Martin.
Nice long pit straight. You'll stay on the left-hand side because it's a right-hander at the end. You'll see a few bumps under braking. Car just touching the ground until the downforce bleeds off. You don't use all of the track through 1 because through 2 and then 3 you want to keep hard on the throttle, climb the hill to turn 4, and it nips a little bit through the exit. It's off camber there, the back end of the car slides, and then you're into a fantastic chicane that's really high speed.
Really fast.
But bring it left immediately, straighten the car up, downshift, get all that out of the way, all the braking out of the way, turn the wheel, load the front tyre up. Now you're going to go over a blind crest, little bump here as well over where there's a tunnel, and brake, but try not to lock that inside tyre. Pick the throttle up now, because you've got to come down the straight. You get DRS in qualifying. You'll see the big slot gap in his rear wing. You're allowed to use it all the time in qualifying where it's available. Nice wide turn into 11. Picks up the throttle. Lovely crispy engine sound. This is easily flat out. Now a tricky corner coming up. You get all on the nose. Steering loads up. Corner tightens up. But you need a good exit there. Cruising gently downhill now. There are 2 corners to go, but one of them really doesn't count. This penultimate one does. Oh dear, big lock up, and he's gone wide. He's gone off. Lap wrecked by Max. He'll surely just drive into the pit lane, and he hit the brakes. He braked late. You run about 56, 57% front bias as opposed to 42 rear bias, and it just snapped the front axle.
So that lap time will get deleted and wasn't even completed. Yuki Tsunoda does complete the lap. Now, he was actually up on Max Verstappen through the first 2 sectors before Max made that mistake going into the final couple of corners. but he did look quite wide going through the final corner there, Yuki Tsunoda, and I'd like to see another view of that to see if one tyre was actually in contact with the white line. Jack Doohan goes ahead of Yuki.
Yeah, I was just going to say Doohan then has popped it ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, and you have to say the Tsunoda experiment's not working.
Something really wrong with the car.
This is the man who has been on pole and has won for the last 2 years here in Bahrain.
And it was the outside left that locked up. So it locked immediately. It wasn't when he started to turn into the corner. And he understeered clean off the racetrack with his attempt in free practice 3 earlier today, didn't he, in that car, the Red Bull?
Yuki Tsunoda's lap time has been deleted. The point I was trying to make about Yuki is that even before he went off at the same corner as Max, he was actually ahead of Max Verstappen, which probably indicates as well just the problems that Max was having, and then over the team radio confirming during the course of that lap.
I think it's quite a stiff tailwind now coming down into that final turn. Yeah. They're going to have to brake 2 or 3 meters earlier. The blue smoke you saw there from Lewis Hamilton.
What the fuck are you doing?
Where it's basically running along the ground.
So here is Lewis Hamilton, and behind him, George Russell about to start a lap, getting a really good tow from his former teammate.
Lewis Hamilton not fucking faster than Jack Doohan.
Can't even go better than the Alpine of Doohan. Let's see how Charles Leclerc gets on. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are both out on the track as well. Zach Brown said to Simon and Naomi before this qualifying, we're not as strong in the first sector. That is definitely the case on this latest lap for both Piastri and Norris, as Leclerc goes quickest with a 1:31.4. Where McLaren are stronger is through the middle sector, and Lando Norris about 2 tenths up on his teammate through the middle part of the lap, and he was a tenth up on Piastri in the first part of the lap. Here comes Piastri, blasting his way, DRS open, down the main straight by 6/100ths, goes quicker than Charles Leclerc. Now for Lando Norris, is he going to put a little bit of daylight in the evening time here in Bahrain between himself and his teammate? Right, just under 3 tenths ahead of Oscar Piastri. So it's McLaren 1 and 2, and it's Norris ahead of Piastri. We're on board now with Kimi Antonelli, and we'll keep an eye on his teammate George Russell as well, who's put a really handy first sector, aided by that tow that he was getting behind Lewis Hamilton, but he's dropped a bit of time in the middle part of the lap.
Yeah, it looks like he dropped an awful lot, doesn't he, George, through there. Whether he's had a bit of an adventure, and we're on board then with Antonelli, goes over the line and snatches a current 4th place, but best part of 3/4 of a second away from the McLarens.
George Russell behind his teammate Kimi Antonelli and just ahead of Lewis Hamilton. It's all very, very tight, isn't it, for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th at the moment, as Fernando Alonso slots in a really handy lap time, goes 5th fastest. His teammate currently 14th, and he's had 2 goes at that.
Yeah, I think there could be a few underdogs out there. If they get the traction right and get the lap in, I'm expecting Williams to be very strong here as well. They were in the test. I think it suits them through the slower sections. Haas is another team we can watch out for if they can hook a lap up. Again, they're good through the slower sections, and as you may often hear me say, you spend a lot more time in a slow corner than a fast corner, and often that is what did I say? Drive for show, putt for dough. It's our equivalent in motorsport.
Absolutely. This is driving of a different kind to the one you'll see at Augusta later on this evening. The Masters coverage continues on Sky Sports, and hopefully sitting a bit more comfortably now, not waiting for the golf, but out on the track, is Esteban Ocon. Now they've fixed his seat into that final couple of corners they go. It's officially 2. All the racing drivers, including Martin Brundle, told me it's just the 1, but Esteban seemed to negotiate that pretty fairly well, and he goes 9th fastest overall, just ahead of Carlos Sainz. Hulkenberg will be next across the line, puts himself out of the danger zone for the time being, and goes 10th fastest.
Doohan's the outlier there, isn't it? That's a cracking effort. P6 at the moment for Jack Doohan. He needs a solid weekend, doesn't he? But he seems to have weathered the storm very well, I must say. He's kept his head
some good
intact
laps.
as young Jack.
Jack Doohan, who gained more places than any other driver in the Japanese Grand Prix, but didn't exactly start very high up the grid. In fact, he started 19th on that occasion. And last time he was here in Bahrain driving, took the first of his 5 poles in F2. So over 1 lap, he's fairly solid, but now he's in an F1 car as well. As you know, Martin, that's a very different kettle of fish.
And of course, those tyres you were in love with 5 minutes ago, you don't want to see ever again now. You want another set.
Yes.
Well, in fact, you hope you don't need another set until you go out in Q2.
So, just under 6 minutes to go here, and there's 18 lap times on the board. The two drivers that haven't got a lap time are Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda. There's a huge amount of pressure on the two Red Bull drivers here, who I did wonder, Ted Kravitz, were they going to go and try and do 3 laps in Q1 just to give the drivers a bit more of a safety net, but that is not the case. Pressure is on here.
Yeah, say that again. It really is. It's going to have to be a one-lap wonder for Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen. Max, of course, is capable of delivering that. He's going to have to deliver a 1:32.0 to be absolutely sure. That's a kind of target lap cut-off time at the moment. Just to put that in perspective, Liam Lawson on a 1:32.3, the likes of Alex Albon a 1:32.4. So with no lap time so far for either of the Red Bull driver, they've got to get on with it. I thought that was significant, didn't you, when Max Verstappen said, look, after that setup change they made going into this, my braking is completely different. Martin, maybe you can explain, as both Red Bulls follow out a McLaren, how do they get around that? Now that at least he has that knowledge, Max on the braking, is it easy just to adapt?
Well, he'll have to brake 2 or 3 meters earlier and possibly less hard. I don't know what I'm going to assume they've changed some geometry and a little bit of aero rather than the braking profile as such, but it's all interlinked and quite clearly he's used to hitting the brake pedal in a mechanical, methodical way, and suddenly the car won't take it. The front axle won't take that amount of brake pressure, so he's going to have to readjust. But the problem for Max is using 2 sets of brand new tyres in Q1 will compromise him in Q3.
Max Verstappen, one of the drivers to reach Q3 at every race in 2025, but he might not have the luxury of 2 sets of soft tyres, new tyres, to take into that Q3 session. And his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who qualified 14th on the grid in a car that was starting from the pit lane in the previous 2 races when Liam Lawson was behind it, has just as much of a big task to try and make sure they get into the second part of qualifying here. And Tsunoda has done that on 3 of the 4 occasions that he has raced here in Bahrain in the past. Here's a man who reached Q3 for the first time in his career in Japan, Ollie Behrman, currently just the right side of the drop zone. If you haven't been with us so far this season, if you're new to Formula One, we lose the slowest 5 drivers in the first part of qualifying, the slowest 5 in the second part, and then the remaining 10 go and battle out for pole.
Piastri's gone out again, as has Antonelli. We'll see who goes out on track. 12 of the 20 out of the pit lane at the moment.
I'm a little surprised to see Oscar Piastri back out there again. I'd be even more surprised if he's on a new set of tyres. But here comes Ollie Behrman. Take us through this one, Martin. Can he produce another storming lap, perhaps?
Well, the lad's got some speed. We do know that, don't we? And the hash should be fairly tidy. You take a really wide line in to turn 4 to open up the angle of the corner.
These cars look so sluggish.
Very close to the blue line there for track limits, but I think he got away with that. And through the high-speed chicane I was telling you about, but you must get the car straight before you get in there. Otherwise, that happens.
You didn't see
you lost the inside front tyre because you have to come in from a more acute angle. He wasn't able to approach the corner with the right attitude in the car and the right track position there, which cost Ollie Behrman a little bit. So what you mustn't do is then try and overdrive the second half of the lap to make up for it, because you'll make another mistake. You have to park that, wipe the slide and go again. And here he goes then through 12. Back into the car, sparking away. They are in parc ferme conditions now, of course, with he's a second down already, because these are race conditions that they're now in. That means new skid blocks on the cars, and that's why we tend to see them rubbing quite a lot in qualifying, despite not having full tanks of fuel, of course. Oh, and still he has to wrestle the car through the exit of the corner.
Yeah, we focused on it, but that is not Ollie Behrman's finest lap ever, and he only goes P13, and that won't be enough. Kimi Antonelli goes third fastest. Here's Gabriel Bortoletto, last season's F2 champion, has taken pole here in the Junior Series and goes 12th fastest ahead of Pierre Gasly. Is on the cusp. That projected time of 1:31.9 plus or minus 2/10. So he's on the cusp there, as is Lance Stroll. Stroll suffering a little bit for the second qualifying session in a row. Hadja goes into the top 5.
And he's giving Verstappen a bit of a slipstream. He didn't stay out there. A bit of a slipstream down the pit straight. I'm sure Red Bull would have loved him to have hung out there a little bit longer. And this has got, and still he's fighting the car in turn 2. This lap has got to count now for Verstappen and Tsunoda, otherwise they'll be on the back row of the grid, the pair of them.
Lewis Hamilton with a 28.9 has the fastest first sector so far, as Pierre Gasly goes 5th fastest, and that pushes Ollie Behrman down into the bottom 5, and he's out of qualifying. And Max Verstappen with a 29.1 for the first sector is pretty handy, as Jack Doohan now goes 3rd fastest and puts himself comfortably, I think, into the second part of qualifying. Yuki Tsunoda was a 10th down on Max Verstappen, but still there or thereabouts through the first part of the lap. Liam Lawson goes 14th, pushes Bortoletto closer to the drop zone. Stroll's in it and he's out. Alex Albon is out on the track at the moment and lapping about the same time as Yuki Tsunoda through the first sector. On board as we are now with Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton going 2nd fastest to the top of the hill on the exposed part of the track, and he's had a really good middle sector. That's exactly what Verstappen needs, and what he needs to do now is not outbrake himself into the final corner and ruin the lap for a second time. Lawson takes the checker flag. 14th fastest. Tsunoda is looking handy to get out of the bottom 5. That is a much more conservative line from Max Verstappen, who crosses the line now to go 3rd fastest overall and safely.
Rồi quá, Việt Anh vào là Verstappen lên bảng liền. Hiểu rồi, hiểu. Vào Verstappen vào là Verstappen lên hạng 3 liền. Vừa mới vào đây.
Một đâu.
Nãy Verstappen anh bị chớ. Hay thế nhờ.
Trời ơi, tao phù hộ mắt rồi.
Mày đang ở đâu vậy?
Nhà tao.
Mày ngồi vào đi. Mày ngồi vào máy đi.
Lười quá, tao đang nằm, tao chuẩn bị ngủ.
Ngủ yên thịnh đến ghê quá.
Trời ơi, tao ngủ thật nhưng tao ngủ danh tủng quá.
Ồ mẹ, tao thấy xác định là thằng nào, thằng McLaren nó không top 1 thì hai thằng đó nên tự tử đi. Thật sự.
Đúng,
mẹ
đi.
Tao coi mẹ ba vòng tập rồi. Mấy thằng quỷ này mẹ xe nó nhanh, mẹ gấp đôi mấy người kia. Xe nhanh gấp đôi mấy top 2 nha. Không phải là nhanh gấp đôi là tất cả mọi người đâu, nhanh gấp đôi là top 2.
Liam Lawson are out, and Alex Albon for only the 3rd time in 50 races since the start of 2023 has been out-qualified by his teammates, and he's out of qualifying here.
Sorry guys, but I don't really.
Tsunoda vẫn sống à?
Trời, mày đừng có nhờn với Tsunoda. Mày nhìn lên top 5 kìa. Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri, Doohan.
Doohan, bro. What the fuck?
Doohan đang nấu rồi. Để
Tắt nắp đéo thể zoom toàn màn hình nhờ cái.
Đây là tao.
Audi sponsors Formula One on Sky Sports.
Nhưng mà qua mùa sau có thêm Audi nữa.
Đúng rồi. Mùa sau, hình như mùa sau có Audi với Cadillac.
22 đội ngon.
Nhưng mà nghe nói mùa sau như tại vì luật nó đổi luật.
Chỉ là vừa zoom lên mẹ thấy toàn đồ ăn rồi kiệt.
When you want to mow the lawn quickly, you need the Ryobi cordless 33cm mower with a 1+ battery that powers over 2 tools. You'll be mowing in seconds. With no cord, you don't need to worry about extension cables or tugs and tangles as you go. It's compact and maneuverable, with an easy edge grass comb to mow right up to the edges. You'll be able to tackle all this. So get finished faster, because life is for living. And your garden is for enjoying. Get the Ryobi cordless 33cm mower for just $219.99 with free delivery and a 3-year guarantee. And you'll get a free grass trimmer worth over £60. Buy now at ryobitools.co.uk.
Home. It's a feeling that grows over time. It's where a table becomes your stage for every crowd pleaser, even the slightly crispy ones.
Baby, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home.
Oak Furniture Land. Grow your home. Sail now on.
When I stay in the shoes now, I'll hold the scene in a whole red maybe get the color boss dying. Chance of mine begin to cold. Bevis is staying yet with Joe.
Welcome back to Bahrain with an explanation as to what happened to Liam Lawson.
We had a problem with DRS there.
Sorry, wait.
And we're checking what happened there. They opened, then it closed again.
I opened it, I didn't close it.
Yeah, copy. We see it. We just need to understand what happened.
Oh my god, man.
And we are P17. We think the lift-off has sent the system into passive and then it closed.
So losing all that DRS advantage as it closed, and there's Ollie Behrman. Q3 last week, back of the grid this week. What a difference 7 days makes. Karun Chandok.
Yeah, massive disappointment for Ollie Behrman. The first lap wasn't really good enough, and on his second lap, you could see Crofty up at turn 4, struggling with a lot of understeer there, really having to wait on the front. And then listen to it here, he's got quite low revs. Chooses to stay in 6th gear, quite low revs through the middle part. And then when he drops on turn 8, snatches the inside front, goes way offline. Look at the amount of steering lock. I'll just go back there. Watch his hands fully crossed over, and he just dumped a whole load of lap time. Look at that, over 180 degrees. 8/10 in the end behind Esteban Ocon. So yeah, massive disappointment for Ollie Behrman.
Confirmation Liam Lawson's DRS did close halfway down the straight towards turn 11. Alex Albon looked like he made a bit of a mistake at turn 4, locked up. His team boss James Vowles is with us on the pit wall. Is that what cost him a spot in Q2, James?
I think it's on all of us really. So 4 wasn't great, he locked up, but also we need a fast outlap to get the fronts in, and I think you saw but a lot of traffic right at the end there, so weren't able to push.
We saw in pre-season testing, James, you know, you were so strong here, left fastest. You know, what has changed in that time? How can we explain that to the fans?
I mean, the main thing is two different things, I think. One, in the cooler conditions, I think we were better. It was freezing here. I had every layer of clothing I had on. And we're not today. It's much warmer. And I think that's generally a trait of our car. The second thing is obviously in winter testing, I think we were just a little bit lighter on fuel than others around us.
When it's blowing.
You know, that's sort of, you run your program. I think I said it quite a bit in winter. Others were probably a little bit heavier.
And the wind conditions out there tonight, not easy for the drivers.
No, it's the windiest it's been all this weekend, and it keeps rotating as well, so it makes it unpredictable.
James, thanks ever so much indeed. We'll let you get off the side to concentrate on Q2, which is what we're going to do right now, because the green light is on at the end of the pit lane. And Alex Albon out-qualified then for the first time as teammates by Carlos Sainz on what is Carlos Sainz Sr.'s 63rd birthday today, so already an early birthday present from his son. Let's see if we can get into Q3. Not the only birthday celebrations going on in the paddock tonight. Flavio Briatore, 75 years young-ish also.
Good stuff. So only the two McLarens and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari got through Q1 with one set of new tyres. Everybody else used 2. I believe an Aston used 3 sets. maybe both of them.
I believe McLaren used some sets actually.
So that's not a new set on Fernando Alonso there, so I don't know how many he used to get through to this stage, but you really, in a perfect world, you want to get through Q1 on one set of brand new boots.
So that disadvantage for Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda, not quite as much of a disadvantage as it might have been.
Correct, especially if they can sneak through here into the top 10 shootout without burning up too many tyres.
Never reached Q3 in Bahrain. Yuki Tsunoda, he missed out by 7 milliseconds, 7/1000th of a second last year. And what amazes me here, Martin, after spending FP1 and FP3 tiptoeing around the track trying to cool the tyres down, Yuki Tsunoda, even though the air temperature is 26 degrees, is weaving away, trying to get some energy into the tyres.
Yeah, you can put energy into the wheel rims with your brakes, particularly the front. As I explained earlier, you've got a front bias. Front bias 60-40, let's call it. And then also, as long as you're going fast enough, you can put some lateral load in and build. So it's the wheel rim, it's the core of the tyre, the sidewall of the tyre, and the surface of the tyre. They've all got to be right.
The tyre!
You turn up into the first corner and expect some grip.
So only Norris and Piastri
make them drive on rails
in the pit lane currently, trying to make their way out onto the track. Fernando Alonso, the only driver who's reached Q2 in every race so far this season without progressing any further. Meanwhile, Yuki Tsunoda yet to reach Q3.
Can someone,
let's see what he can do.
Someone impede Lando Norris?
A couple of races when he was at Racing Bulls, but he hasn't done it as a Red Bull driver. Once again, flirting with the outer extremities of the track.
Yeah, you've got to be out there to your job as a racing driver is to minimise the corner, the angle of the corners, and minimise the length of the track as well. So you cheat wherever you can get away with it, basically. And now the system works well. It's much better now for track limits in Formula 1, doesn't it? With that blue line really defining what is the edge of the white line.
Oh no!
That is Esteban Ocon in the Haas.
Fuck you!
Red flag, which doesn't surprise me. We had a double waved yellow. I'm okay, says Esteban. That's great to see. We had a double waved yellow that briefly went green again, but there's no way it should have gone green because
skibidi!
Turn 3 on the exit of turn 3 has rather heavily gone into the barriers.
And this compromises anybody out on a lap, of course, because they've effectively wasted that set of tyres. And even if you're on the out lap, you still take a bit of life. That is a very high-speed accident.
At turn 2, you're doing round about 70 miles an hour. By the time you get to turn 3, you've got 65 miles an hour of extra speed.
Yeah, he's dropped it under acceleration, I'm going to guess, coming through 2. Probably got a bit of a tank slapper on and has overcorrected it straight into the barriers. That is about 100 metres away from where Romain Grosjean went in on the right-hand side in a Haas. And yeah, that's a lot of damage. That would have been, he wouldn't have slowed down very much at all before he whacked that at what looks like a rather nasty angle.
Taking his time getting out of the car, he's radioed already to say, I'm okay. So let's have a little look now. Down into turn 1 we go.
That looks perfect. So it's under acceleration here. Yeah, kind of pretty much as I said, isn't it? It's gets out of shape, gets a tank slapper on. You then start trying to steer into the slide, and luckily, yeah, that's a big old impact.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, sorry. I'm really sorry, guys.
It's okay. You're okay, so that's good.
It's not as big as Doohan's in Australia last week, but that we were talking, weren't we, about how Esteban has to sort of fold himself into these cockpits because he's so long of leg, isn't he? And then you start rattling your knees and your shins and your ankles against the side of the cockpit because that's a tough old angle he's gone in there. And look, you can see how quickly the car's stopped once it's hit the barrier. That tells you how much energy is dissipated. It's much better when you see bits flying off and the car tumbling down the racetrack somewhere where the energy is being dissipated over a much longer period of time.
Yeah, which these cars are designed to do, and the survival cell, the cockpits, is ever more strengthened, and the driver protection increased year after year. Laura Muller, by the way, the race engineer for Esteban Ocon, just making sure that he was okay. It's a big rebuild for tomorrow. That'll be a new gearbox. They'll put, I would imagine, a new engine in the back of that car. Although saying that, Jack Doohan, after his crash in FP1 in Japan, still had the same power unit in the next day.
It depends if it's still running when you get the shock load through it, and exactly where the load goes to the drive shafts, gearbox, and what have you, whether it cracks the engine or whatever. And hopefully he'll get away with the motor on that occasion.
So red flag then, while the car is clear, the session is stopped and the clock stopped too. It gives us a chance to hear from one of the 5 drivers who've been knocked out so far. Alex Albon at Williams. He's with Rachel Brooks.
Alex, just talk me through that. I know you'll be disappointed. What was the car feeling like? What was the issue going on?
No issues with the car, just we messed up on our... well, we need to review it, but we went out very late. We went out... I had to overtake 4 or 5 cars on my out lap to try and get a lap in, and then we were sitting in the pit lane for a long time with the blankets off whilst all the cars were coming out on the pit lane. So we started the lap maybe 15 degrees too cold on where we should have been, and then that was it really. So the margins here are so small. We talk about it every week, and we just didn't execute the right run plan for Q1.
So what's the potential in the car then? Where could you have been, do you think, today?
I think Carlos will put it where it should be. He's been good this weekend, and I think we're fairly closely matched. So I think close to Q3, but it was always going to be tight, but not P6.
Can you overtake around here?
You can, yeah. Our race pace was good. Our strategy is going to be important. This is not going to be a Suzuka, so there's going to be a few laps, a few different strategies. We'll see which one's the right one for us.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Might want to try and replicate the 2023 Bahrain Grand Prix, where he started 15th and finished 10th. Alex Albon, as we look once again at the reason why we have this red flag and what happened to Esteban Ocon.
So it was on upshift, so his tyres not quite where they needed to be, and on upshift it's...
And red flag. That's for Ocon off exit turn 2. So I just nearly lost it.
Yeah. So if you haven't got the tyres exactly right, and you want to try and keep some tyre for the end of the lap as well, as we were talking about earlier on, but he's gone through there. He was on all the right bits of the racetrack, all looked completely under control. Upshifted, gets a torque spike, and round it. Well, it didn't go round, but as he was trying to wrestle it, because you've got the engine and gearbox behind you in these cars, of course, it's a great big pendulum. When you lose it, it ain't coming back.
So they reckon another
What are they
2
doing?
wins and we can get Q2 started again. And when we do, Nico Hülkenberg and Yuki Tsunoda are probably going into it as the most disadvantaged, because Ted Kravitz, they were on a lap and they were pushing hard when the red flag happened.
Yeah, thank you, Crofty. Yeah, a lot of drivers coming back in. Obviously, look, they understand that when a fellow driver crashes, first thing, check he's okay. Second thing, worry about how it advantages or disadvantages yourself or other people. But interesting thing about the Haas. This is not good. The medical car is in the pit lane being chased by 6 or 7 drivers.
Yeah,
so such is everybody's haste to get out. They haven't let the medical car take its place at the end of the pit lane. I never really like to see that. I can understand why it's happened. I think the medical car dropped Esteban Ocon off at the front of the pit lane with the to go and just get checked out. But yeah, you never really like to see that, but I can understand why it happened. Just a quick one on the Haas floor. They did find, with the sort of quickly executed tweak to the Haas floor in Japan that worked for Ollie Behrman, has now been put on Esteban Ocon's car. So we'll see if they've still got some new floors available once they patch that car up.
Thank you very much, Ted.
Try to look at drivers' visors, whether they're clear visors or lightly smoked visors. When I was out at turn 10 talking to you last night, trackside, you needed sunglasses on. It was so bright out there. Yeah, it might be a night race, but it's way brighter than a grey day at Silverstone or Spa. Way brighter out there. And it's interesting to see if the drivers feel the need. But of course, it's not that bright in every single metre of it. I think they were mostly wearing clear visors from what I can see.
Great day at Silverstone. I don't think those things exist. Surely it's one of the sunniest places on
Dark
planet
grey
Earth.
then.
Whatever the weather,
we love Silverstone.
It's a very special place to be. British Grand Prix coming up, and we'll see you there in July. Green light then at the end of the pit lane, and there's a lot of cars wanting to come out and get on with this. And right at the head of it is Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes, who thinks that there's probably potential for the top 2 rows in that Mercedes if he can hook up a really good lap here this evening.
Did he get a brand new Mercedes in the week, but he's not allowed to drive it in his home country for 3 years?
That's right.
Because he's too young.
The car's too powerful and he's too young.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the first world problems for being an 18-year-old in Formula 1.
First world problems,
yeah. He was joking about that when we were chatting in the desert. To be fair, he hasn't got time to go driving his new Mercedes car because he's got plenty of races to be driving in and all his studies to do as well. He's got exams coming up. He won't let his exams slide just because he's now one of the 20 drivers in Formula 1.
A little bit of an arty shot there on the inside of a wheel gun socket. You can see where they... I did actually, but you can see where they spark a bit sometimes when they put them on, because all those lugs have still got to line up at some point.
You try doing that at speeds. They practice so often, these pit crews, to make sure they get it absolutely right. Lando Norris out on the track ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri.
And it's not long before wheel nuts in Formula 1 are toast. I think there's a budget. There's a properly, seriously good budget for wheel nuts in Formula 1 teams.
Certainly are. Wish I had the contract to make him, I must admit. Here's Isaac Hadjar. Well, I was going to say, I wanted to talk about Isaac Hadjar, who, for me, is turning into a bit of a one-lap superstar at the moment. I think that guy is a
one-lap superstar.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? The GP2, or sorry, the F2 graduates do seem to have a good turn of pace. I think, you know what it is? It's because they get one practice session, then they're straight into qualifying, aren't they? They have to turn up and get on with it in F3 and F2.
Well, turning up and getting on with it here is Kimi Antonelli, the youngest driver to lead a lap of a Grand Prix at the age of 18 years and 224 days. He beat Max Verstappen's record by 4 days. And he led 10 laps at Suzuka. How's he going to do over 1 lap here in Bahrain?
Don't know. I bet the floor of his car's pretty hot, though. Scratching down the pit straight like that. It'll do it again at the top of the hill as the downforce squashes the suspension and sidewall of the tyre.
What is plank
the car in, then be patient through the exit. That looks a bit tentative, but it's a very long shot, so I don't know. And then this chicane section, left-hand side. Luckily, the human eye filters a lot of that noise out better than this camera. And as soon as you drive these cars, you never notice the halo again. As soon as you get out on track, you notice the sort of winglets on top of the tyres there. And your mirrors are pretty ugly things sticking out the side, but your focus is so far ahead, you just don't notice the halo, the pitot tube. You can see the silver tube in front of him sticking up. You can't see it at all. What you can see are the apexes of the corners. This is the tricky 13 that tightens through the exit right on the limit there. And Antonelli then on his way towards completing this lap.
And has 10th to make up through the first sector on his teammate George Russell. Antonelli rounds the final corner and his time is a 1:31.1, so that's what they've all got to try and aim at. George Russell will be next to cross the line, and when he does so, I'll tell you what race control are saying about the two Mercedes. In the end, Russell a couple of tenths down on Antonelli. Now, I don't want to pour any cold water on their further progress in qualifying or potential penalties, but they have been noted by race control, both Mercedes, for leaving the garage before the resumption time was announced. There was an estimated time of resumption, and then a minute later, a confirmation as to what that time will be. Ted Kravitz mentioned the medical car was still coming in and driving in the pit lane. Well, a bit dark out there, but it's not the lights turning off, I promise you. The medical car was driving, and there were cars also in the fast lane of the pit lane at the time. I would imagine it's a fine.
You say that's a slap on the wrist and a fine for the team rather than a grid penalty for the drivers. You would imagine, but who knows these days.
I'd hope not, but we'll see. 1:30.5 for Lando Norris. It does tend to be a fine these days as Max Verstappen comes in and aborts that lap. So maybe they're still working on front wing angle at Red Bull to try and get it absolutely right, and Verstappen wasn't overly happy with it as Piastri goes fastest by 1/10 of a second from Oscar Piastri.
Verstappen was on a mighty lap there, so whether something happened into the final corner, he was on a stonking McLaren pace lap.
Yeah. Sorry, Piastri faster than Lando Norris.
What the fuck?
I just get the feeling that it was like, it was used tyres and we're just not quite happy.
Wow.
We need to make an adjustment and get in now.
6
Leclerc goes
tenths
third fastest, 6/10 behind Oscar Piastri. Jack Doohan crosses the line in 6th, ahead of Russell, Gasly and Hulkenberg.
Russell is the man under pressure there. He'll need a tidy run, but they've got to come in, refuel at 0.8 litres of a second per second, rather. It's not a quick process necessarily. You've got to think about it. The tyres change. The only thing you can change in part firmware conditions, front wing angle, tyre pressures, but they've still got to be above the minimum allowed. And then the only other tools are on the steering wheel, the differential and the braking.
Well, he had no time. He had no time on the board, Max Verstappen, going into his final lap in Q1. He's going to have no time on the board going into his final lap of this Q2 session. And the stewards are going to look at that pit lane incident where Antonelli and Russell allegedly came out too early after the session. You are given an estimated time of resumption and then you're given confirmation of it. You can't leave the garage until that confirmation is given, because that's when race control say, yeah, the pit lane's clear, you can come out.
So some of them were on used tyres, but if they were on an out lap when the red flag, and they haven't really had a punishing lap, they're sort of halfway house, aren't they, between new and used, some of those tyres.
Isaac Hadjar punishing his tyres with a lock-up there down into turn 10. I've got the feeling Yuki Tsunoda was pushing hard. I didn't know whether he was on used or new at the time. Charles Leclerc is beginning to emerge as a candidate to put pressure on the two McLaren drivers. Leclerc, of course, who took his maiden pole position in Formula One here in 2019 and would have taken a maiden win if he hadn't had power unit issues during the course of the race. Finished third in the end. It's a real shame for Charles Leclerc. He drove absolutely superbly on that particular evening. He made up for the victory here in 2022 from pole.
Yeah, this is a pretty speedy turnaround. They know, I mean, it's the two McLarens out front, but then from third to 9th at the moment is half second. And you can tell as the temperatures drop, as the evening moves along and track conditions improve, there's a little bit of time coming. There's a little bit of evolution coming out of this racetrack. Under pressure.
Yeah, and the ones that are really under pressure are Tsunoda and Verstappen at Red Bull, Alonso at Aston Martin, and Hadjar at Racing Bulls, because they haven't got a time on the board. They've been out, but they have no time completed. Esteban Ocon will start P15 after his crash. Unless, of course, he has to start in the pit lane. And down the main straight, here comes George Russell. Man under pressure.
Come on, George.
4 on the board. And a lot of drivers queuing up behind him.
Do something,
to
George.
try and get ahead.
Yeah, he needs this lap. He really does need this lap. Does George Russell. Otherwise, he could be under pressure from behind. I think there's more pace in the car than that. Antonelli's done a personal best first sector as well out there.
Russell, who was third on the grid, of course, last year here at the Sakhir circuit. He's just about 900ths off the pace there through the first part of the lap, almost matching his teammate Kimi Antonelli with that first sector time. Isaac Hadjar now starts his latest lap. Lando Norris is on a fast lap 2 with 2 minutes to go of this session. As long as you get to the line before the checkered flag, you're able to complete your flying lap. Lewis Hamilton, 10th and a half off the pace through the first sector, which is not where he wanted to be either, and still struggling a touch, especially compared to his teammate Charles Leclerc in that Ferrari. Russell now at turn 12 to the end of the middle sector, and the middle sector is where the Mercedes seems to drop a fair bit of pace.
Super wide turn into 13 there. It's obviously a line he wanted. It looked like it was all under control.
Antonelli crosses the line, third fastest, and he set the fastest final sector on that lap. So he should be safely through with that 1:30.7. Russell goes just ahead of him by about 0.05 of a second, and he too gets a flying final sector. Let's ride on board now with Max Verstappen as he makes his way, Yuki Tsunoda as he makes his way down the main straights, and Tsunoda only 6th fastest. That might not be enough for him. Lewis Hamilton next to cross the line. He's out of that top 10 at the moment, goes 5th fastest ahead of his teammate who's on an outlap, and Tsunoda. Gasly has now gone through the middle sector with the fastest time. He's found pace in the Alpine. Hadjar crosses the line into the top 8, pushes Pierre Gasly now down into that bottom 5, but as I say, Gasly flying in the middle sector.
This could be a bit of a surprise for a few of the fancied front runners. Gasly drives through the line, it's a reasonable run down there, and goes 3rd.
He has found some lightning pace on a track where he's qualified in the top 5 before, back in his days as a Red Bull junior driver. Gasly 3rd fastest, here's Verstappen, only 7th fastest for Max Verstappen. Is that going to be enough? His teammate Yuki Tsunoda pushes down to 9th. There are personal best times appearing everywhere, but that's because 5 of these drivers didn't have a lap time before these final flying runs. Fernando Alonso is one of them. Where can he put his Aston Martin? Only P14, 0.6 off the pace. That shows you just how tight it is as well. Carlos Sainz is currently in the bottom 5, trying to make amends and do something about that. Sainz goes 6th fastest, pushes Tsunoda down to 10th, and Hadjar out of qualifying. Jack Doohan's on a personal best. Nico Hülkenberg's on a personal best. And Haas last year, he had 11 Q3 appearances. He's given it absolutely everything around the final 2 corners. Hülkenberg crosses the line, stays P13. Yuki Tsunoda breathing a sigh of relief, but he's not safely through yet, because here comes Jack Doohan, and Jack Doohan goes ahead of Isaac Hadjar, but by about 0.02 of a second, misses out on the top 10. Charles Leclerc is going to be safe, and Yuki Tsunoda, for the first time here in Bahrain, will make it through into Q3.
9th and 10th for Red Bull. Goodness me. We knew they might struggle a little bit more here than, say, Suzuka or certainly Verstappen, but wow, they're really on their back foot. I know it's only half a second, but a Formula 1 car goes a very long way in half a second.
Well, last year, Tsunoda missed out by 0.07 of a second. This time he's through by 0.17 of a second at Jack Doohan's expense. He joins Fernando Alonso in the bottom 5. Esteban Ocon, who crashed and caused that red flag.
Good job today, maximized. Thank you, guys.
That was all the pace they felt they had. Nico Hülkenberg misses out, only P13. Isaac Hadjar misses out, P12 for him, and Doohan completing that 5.
They just threw tyres at Alonso to get him through to Q2, didn't they? So I don't know why he's particularly happy about that.
Yeah, we'll take that over 14, won't we? Yes, we will. Nice work. Good job, guys.
So, Nico Hülkenberg, P13, but felt that it was good work. Oscar Piastri had the fastest time ahead of Lando Norris. It is tight between the 2 McLaren drivers. Who's there to challenge in Q3?
Audi sponsors Formula 1 on Sky Sports.
Formula 1 glory comes to those who put in the preparation. Will you make the right calls and lead your team to victory? F1 Clash. Download for free from your app store.
I didn't use Agent Force, the powerful AI from Salesforce, so an AI agent didn't see me the fastest route to my gate. Which has changed.
I'll tell the pilot to hold the plane.
They got an app for that, dude. Agent Force helps Heathrow create a first-class experience. Agent Force. It's what AI was meant to be.
Formula 1 and art can challenge what we believe is possible, changing our perspective on the world around us.
At Airwallex, we are shifting perspective on global finance, helping customers like McLaren seamlessly do business around the world. Airwallex, proud partner of the McLaren Formula One team.
Car insurance sorted. That you've just used Confused. JustUsedConfused.com.
What makes a winner? Winners know exactly when to make their move. Winners block out the noise.
Always offered us.
They only listen to the data. Because when the stakes are as high as these Georgian ceilings, show the world that this is my house! Win at moving with Zoopla.
Welcome back to Bahrain. We mentioned that Mercedes will be investigated after the session for going to the end of the pit lane before the official resumption time was announced. And others joined in.
We cannot go out yet. We don't have an official restart time yet. Yeah, that's what I thought. Mercedes is dodgy. Yeah, we think they are wrong.
But they joined in the queue anyway. That'll be investigated after the session. We've got 4 minutes to go until Q3 starts. So, Karun Chandler, what are you looking at the SkyPad?
I thought we'd take a look at Max Verstappen's lap, Crofty. As you said, both Red Bulls 9th and 10th, massively disappointing. So let's take a look at it as we get down towards turn 1. Just watch the front end of the car. Just not there for Max. He's gone deep. Then he's compromised his line for the left-hander of 2. So he's had a poor exit going up the hill as well. When we get to the top of the hill, up at turn 4, just watch his hands. So much understeer on the way there, and then it just doesn't bite. He's having to wait for such a long time to get the car to rotate, get the middle part of the lap, fighting the car a little bit there. It doesn't really look hooked up. Bottom of the hill, watch now. Just watch the front. Again, just not rotating. For those of you who watched the coverage before qualifying, Martin and I looked at Suzuka. We were saying the car had a lot of understeer, but somehow Max bullied it into the apex, got it to rotate on that occasion and took pole. It doesn't seem like it's happening here. It's just not there. We'll see now when we get to the end of the back straight, into the DRS zone, turn left into the left-hander of 11. Again, just not able to carry anywhere close to the apex speed of the McLarens through there, flat through 12, up to the top of the rise and into 13. Again, just waiting. Then he can go. There's such a long delay before you can put the power down. And when you're doing that, you're just bleeding lap time. Down the last corner, he's not been happy with the brakes here all weekend long. And again, just no front end there for Max to rotate the car. We know in terms of driving style, he is a driver who relies so heavily on a positive front end to give him that confidence to attack the corner. And so far, I can't see we're seeing any of that here.
Thanks ever so much, Karun. Great explanation. James Vowles is with us on the Williams pit wall. James, if Verstappen and Red Bull are having problems, that could be a good Q3 to reach to try and capitalise.
I'll tell you what, I could listen to Karun all evening long. That's a beautiful description. Yeah, it's surprisingly close out there. I think we sort of have said all year we're getting a broken record on this, but it really is. A 10th separates 6 cars, so anyone's game in that sort of melee in the mix. I think McLaren are a bit by themselves, but let's see where we get to.
This is the Carlos we know and we're expecting, isn't it, James? Now it looks like he's settling down a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's still more to come from him. It's a brilliant result today. Obviously, it's a shame Alex isn't up there with him. I think we had the potential in the car, but what you are seeing is Carlos becoming comfortable. And what I'm really intonating at is there's more to come after this, I think, as well.
And in terms of your out lap, your preparation lap, you were tiptoeing around earlier this afternoon in the sunshine. Have you got to push like hell to get those tyres warmed up in time?
Yes, short answer. I think you probably see it, but there's a lot of queuing in the pit lanes. All the temps are dropping 4 or 5 degrees. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we really do have to get those tyres working, especially the front. So pretty much you're on it, push like hell and a bit of weaving.
I mean, Carlos found 8/10 Q1 to Q2. Are we seeing a bit of track evolution as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's the same always with Bahrain. The drivers know this like the back of their hand. We've done thousands of kilometers here in testing now, but it is just a little bit more rubber, a little bit more risk-taking as well, and there's probably another 10th or 2 to come in the session.
Thanks ever so much indeed, James. Cars making their way to the end of the pit lane. Just a thought on that Mercedes incident where they came too soon. Ron Meadows, their team manager, sporting director, who is always there in the pit wall and knows exactly when a car can and can't come out. Not here this weekend. His son's getting married, so congratulations there. Does that make a difference, I wonder?
I think it does if you get a change of control on that, but it was a provisional time they've reacted to rather than an actual time, isn't it? Ted's down at Red Bull.
Yes, so Ron Meadows, that's the sporting director, the rules guy at Mercedes, his duties are being covered by Andrew Shovlin, the chief engineer, and Matt Dean, the chief mechanic. So maybe they've missed one on that, or maybe not, we'll find out later. Both Mercedes on new tyres, Hamilton on old, both Red Bulls on old tyres, info for you as well. So we saw that earlier on, didn't we, when Verstappen and Tsunoda went through those sets. That's what it means. They'll get one new set later on in Q3.
Matte colour, shiny gloss colour. Old tyres to new colours, Red Bull to Mercedes. You can see from the end of the pit lane.
Yeah, it's just the mould back in the day.
Qualifying sessions this year and one sprint session, all won by different drivers in terms of the qualifying. Largest pole margin of the season so far, 0.084 seconds. Are we going to continue the trend here, I wonder, of it being so close?
Literally blink and you'll miss it, isn't it?
So don't blink. Not for the next 10 minutes and 50 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. James Vowles was saying it's tight everywhere, but the pole margin has been really close so far this year. Down at Mercedes, there's the qualifying head-to-head. 3-0 in favour of George Russell, but Antonelli was faster than George for the first part of Q2. George just popped up with a time that was 5/100ths of a second quicker with their final runs.
Both Mercedes on brand spanking new tyres, Gasly used tyres, Leclerc as Sainz, Hamilton and Verstappen. Well, they have not gone out yet, but yes, so several drivers having to go out on used tyres.
For Pierre Gasly, the last two Grand Prix here in Bahrain have not been the best for him. He started last on both occasions. He's in the top 10 today. Carlos Sainz has put a Williams in the top 10 for the first time in Bahrain since 2017. McLaren have continued where they left off in the practice sessions by leading Q1 and Q2. Verstappen struggling, and his teammate Yuki Tsunoda reaching Q3 for the first time here, struggling too, although both Red Bulls are in it to win it. So take us through the rest of this lap, Martin.
Yeah, the traffic doesn't affect them. They're completely off the racing line, which is good direction change there for Tsunoda. Just right on the edge of grip. You have to be patient through a hairpin like that, over the blind crest, and you start braking down the hill then. And it's downshift, brake, just keep turning left, and then you let the car go. Stay on the right-hand side for the shortest way to get down to the next left-hander. You charge into this corner, wait for it to settle down in the middle, pick up front grip. As soon as you're comfortable, you've got enough grip, floor the throttle. 12 is easily flat out now. Come in high to 13, it tightens through the exit. Car was just wandering around a little bit there. He's about 6/10 down in the middle sector. Verstappen going well out there as well, but that still doesn't look like they've got absolute front-running pace.
What it does seem is that Yuki Tsunoda has got way more pace than Max Verstappen on this lap. Tsunoda crosses the line, it's a 1:31.6. Already George Russell is nearly half a second up through the first sector on Tsunoda. Verstappen will be next to cross the line and goes 4/10 behind his teammate.
He made a mistake in turn one, so remember they're on used tyres, Red Bull, but he made a mistake in turn one, did Max, I'm being told.
That explains a huge amount. Gasly with a 29.3 in the first sector, half a second down on George Russell. And then looking to see who's improving. Hamilton on Charles Leclerc, 29.1 for Hamilton, as Antonelli on the new tyres goes into provisional pole, a couple of tenths up on Yuki Tsunoda. Here comes Carlos Sainz next across the line, slots in third fastest.
My brakes are just terrible. I can't brake at all. It's not bad.
Struggles of Max Verstappen continue here in Bahrain this evening. George Russell on those new tyres takes pole by a whopping 1.1 second. And when I say pole, provisional pole, it can still be beaten, but that is a super lap from George Russell. Gasly goes P4. Russell was third on the grid last year, and he's put that Mercedes in a super spot.
Yeah, Antonelli's obviously had an adventure somewhere because he's 1.1 behind his teammate. And quite a lot of drivers will be into that gap now, including Lewis Hamilton.
Hamilton goes second fastest, on board now with his teammate Charles Leclerc on the run down towards the final couple of corners. Meanwhile, Piastri with the fastest middle sector, Norris with the fastest first sector, 10th up on Piastri in sector 1, 2/10 down in sector 2, neck and neck, the two McLarens, as you would expect. Leclerc goes on to the provisional front row ahead of Hamilton by about a 10th of a second. But here come the two McLarens, led by Oscar Piastri, who takes that provisional pole from George Russell. Can Lando Norris snatch it out of his teammate's grasp? No, he can't. Norris lost time in the final sector and is only P3 at the end of the first flying runs.
And it underlines what a cracking lap that was from George Russell, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's McLaren pace he's done there. And both McLarens on fresh tyres.
Watching Max Verstappen, you said, Martin, he had his troubles.
That was up at turn 4, actually, yeah. So waving around, trying to scoop the car up. Yeah. And then you're just slow all the way down the hill after that to the braking point for turn 8.
I wondered if he'd exceeded track limits, but to be fair, his time is 10th and slowest so far, so it matters not. As Kimi Antonelli locking up into turn 1, that's where he lost his time. 3/10 of a second he lost. Saying that, though, those 3/10 of a second would have put him ahead just of the two Ferraris. So onto the provisional second row, where he said the pace is possible for him and for Mercedes. George Russell, who wanted to warm his tyres up in a different way to the way the team were asking him in Suzuka. And in the end, I think the team said, no, we got that wrong, to be honest. George, we should have listened to you. I wonder if that's the case tonight. They listened to George and he's delivered the goods.
Yeah, so McLaren were actually showing used tyres. They were another set of those very partly used tyres that were on their outlap when Ocon's red flag was flying. So there's a bit more pace. You still take a bit of life out of them. Cruising round to the pits.
Here's key. Nico Hülkenberg has had a lap time deleted that has just come through on our timing screens, and Kimi Antonelli. Well, Hülkenberg's already out, and I think that lap time deletion puts him down to P16, and that puts Alex Albon up into P15.
Oh, that's annoying, isn't it?
Well,
for him, yeah.
But if that had come earlier, Albon would have gone through into Q2.
Hamilton's had a 31.4 deleted as well, which is his fastest time so far in Q3. That's bizarre, isn't it? Hülkenberg is not in Q3. How can he have a lap deleted now?
Well, whether it's happened at the track or whether the race control in Geneva, where the FIA look at the lap times, Ted, is this Alex Albon should have gone through to Q2?
Yes.
And it's come so late, he's already out.
Exactly. And it
That's
also
not
means,
good enough.
Your words. That also means that Esteban Ocon, who's ripped the back of his Haas out off of the wall, is P14 on the grid.
Yeah.
To a place higher than he should be, arguably. But yeah, I thought, because I've only got the timing screen down here, and I thought it was on the wonk, because suddenly Nico Hülkenberg had dropped down from 13th to 16th, but it was only later that they found out that it was exceeded track limits.
Yeah, and it's a track limit exceeded 45 minutes ago, so because he's not in this session. So that's retrospective penalty. How bizarre. I don't think we've ever seen that before, have we?
No, well, didn't Sergio Perez once get called for a deleted lap in Austria that actually wasn't a deleted lap, but he'd already gone out? I think that in the dim and distant recesses of my mind. But I'm all for using the technology. I'm all for track limits, but you've got to sort it out at the time. It's like using VAR to decide a goal about half an hour after the match is finished. you know, and then taking that goal away. That doesn't seem right to me. Either way, for the here and now, both Lewis Hamilton here on screen and Kimi Antonelli have had lap times deleted, so they're 9th and 10th. That's where Lewis Hamilton lost his lap time. When
yeah, definitely the other side of the blue line, wasn't it? His right rear.
But that's fine. That's been decided. That's been decided, Martin, in the here and now during Q3.
Yeah.
Not 40 minutes ago.
You can never tell from that camera angle anyway, can you? It's got to be a different. You can't tell from the onboard camera either, as to whether both of the whatever side of the car tyres were beyond the blue line.
Pressure's on then for Kimi Antonelli and for Lewis Hamilton. And out in front, Oscar Piastri leads George Russell, leads Lando Norris. McLaren without a top 6 start here in Bahrain since Daniel Ricciardo was 6th on the grid a few years ago, have provisional pole in their hands currently. 2021 Ricciardo was 6th on the grid. Who's there to challenge him here?
It's the top 10 shootout, and all 10 of them are out there on fresh tyres.
Kimi Antonelli not locking up in turn 1 this time, so he survived that. Russell just starting his final flying lap. Hamilton just starting his, and Leclerc over the line now. As a wide line into turn 4 for Antonelli. It's a wide white line on the exit for the drivers. It's been widened since yesterday, and Antonelli straddling that white line, and he's up 28.8 for the first sector. It's been good so far.
Well, yeah, he's really pushing the limits, isn't he, to open up the corner angles really well there. You get a bit of vibration on the curbs, as long as that doesn't unsettle the car. But meanwhile, Russell, fastest of anybody in the first sector, still looking good for Mercedes-Benz.
George Russell has had a very solid start to the season, a season with 4 different pole sitters. Is he about to make it 5 out of 5? We shall see, as towards the end of the middle sector we ride with Kimi Antonelli, and once again he's put in a decent lap here, and he's fractionally under a time that he needs to challenge the top here. Hasn't got a time to his name so far, but he's looking good here for the upper reaches of the grid. His teammate is looking even stronger. Russell extends that advantage through the middle sector. Hamilton loses time in the middle sector. Antonelli crosses the line briefly to go on provisional pole, not by much, 2/100ths of a second. Here comes George Russell though. It's going to be a Mercedes 1-2 provisionally as Russell crosses the line, 2/10ths up. And that is really putting the challenge down to the 2 McLarens, as Charles Leclerc will be crossing the line soon, and he's just aced the middle sector. Hamilton goes only 5th fastest.
Gasly's the one flying in the middle sector. The pressure is on McLaren, because the 2 Mercedes have really put in some great laps, as has Charles Leclerc.
And Lando Norris were not the best first sector, as Gasly goes 4th fastest overall. Piastri was a decent first sector, matching George Russell. Charles Leclerc goes P2, by the way. So onto the front row with that Ferrari. We're not talking about Verstappen for pole this week. He's been struggling all along. P7's about the best I think he could have done. Piastri goes fastest in the middle sector. Lando Norris hasn't got the pace on this lap, as Carlos Sainz is improving in the Williams too. Across the line goes Oscar Piastri, and he takes pole for McLaren. Russell took the challenge to McLaren, and Piastri has responded.
Norris only 6th.
And that is a poor lap from Lando Norris, who just didn't have the pace right from the start. Carlos Sainz could make it even worse. He doesn't for Lando Norris, only P8 for Sainz. But that is not where Lando Norris was expecting to be tonight. I bet you that's where Oscar Piastri thought he should be.
So Norris, the World Championship leader, starts 1 place ahead of the driver, who he's 1 point ahead of. But Oscar Piastri starts tomorrow's race with a tremendous advantage over his championship rival and teammate. Well done to Mercedes-Benz. And once again, Charles Leclerc pulling a lap out of the bag, and Pete Gasly there in 5th. Wow. Whoa. And he's been threatening to do that as well, hasn't he?
Pierre Gasly, who was 5th on the grid here back in 2018.
That's P1, Oscar, P1.
Yeah, maybe. Nice work. Very nice work. Thanks, everyone.
And it means his 50th Grand Prix start will take place from his second Grand Prix pole position on the track that he made his Formula One debut here in 2023. For Oscar Piastri, it took a special lap, the only lap of the session in the 1:29. Mercedes made it that hard for them.
Well, Russell found another 6/10 for his 30-0. Leclerc found 6/10. Norris was only able to find 3/10, and it's cost him dearly.
Certainly has, and right from the first sector, Lando Norris was on the back foot in that lap. It was a 29.0 when he needed a 28.7, so he was that 3/10 behind all the way.
Oh, that's amazing.
Fair play, Pierre Gasly. As I mentioned, he has been fifth on the grid here before, twice actually, 2018 and 2021. For McLaren, it is a first pole position here in Bahrain. But for the championship race, which we think is going to be tight all year long, absolutely superb, isn't it? The championship leader 1 place ahead of Max Verstappen and 5 places ahead of the championship leader, Oscar Piastri, bidding to make amends from Australia, where he suffered because of the rain.
And we've got a feature going out tomorrow with George Russell, who started second on the grid here for his first ever race for Mercedes in end of 2020. Second on the grid and led into the first corner. He starts from the front row of the grid again with his teammate right behind him. Antonelli continues to impress, doesn't he, the 18-year-old?
Absolutely. It was the Sakir Grand Prix for Russell, but it was on this on the grid that we use for the Bahrain Grand Prix. His second front row start in the last 3 Grand Prix, alongside the man who was off the front row for the first time this season, last time out in Suzuka, but has bounced back here tonight. Really good effort from Charles Leclerc. Third on the grid for him, Ferrari's best qualifying performance of the season. And this is where Lando Norris lost it, Martin, in the early part of the lap. Wheel spin costing him 1/10 of a second coming out of turn 1.
Sorry, just looking at some other data. So he just lit the rear axle up, a bit eager, a bit trigger happy on the throttle. But he's missing more than that on the lap. He's lost a good 3/10 somewhere, Lando, on that lap overall.
Smiles for Piastri and for Russell on what is a very warm evening, as you would expect here in Bahrain. They all look like they've been pushing fairly hard there. First front row start for Mercedes here since 2021. And you mentioned Kimi Antonelli. He's qualifying now, 16th, 8th, 6th, 4th. He's improving race by race.
He's learning fast, isn't he? And even when he has a bit of a dud day, Antonelli picks it up for the next day and makes it happen. That's very impressive.
He said he could get on the second row. He said go out and do it then, and he has. It's a fine effort for McLaren and for Mercedes. Well, for McLaren with Piastri, Lando Norris will be ruining the missing 3/4 on that final lap. David Coulthard is down in Parc Fermé with a mic in his hand. He's waiting to speak to the top 3.
Welcome back to the top 3 in qualifying for Charles Leclerc. That session was very unpredictable. Did you really believe you could be in this position when you went into the session, especially looking at how strong the McLarens appeared to be?
I mean, honestly, I didn't expect P3. I knew that in Q3 there was some lap time. I knew that in Q1 and Q2 I just had to be patient and wait for the track to come towards me in Q3, which was a bit tricky because at the beginning of Q3 everything felt really bad with the old tires, but then as soon as we put the new tires, it was quite a bit better. So I'm happy. I did not expect it, but I think it's a result of we explored quite a lot of extreme setups in the last few weekends, and it feels like I found my way a little bit. And little by little, I hope there will be more performance to extract from this car in the weekends to come.
You had some upgrades that were brought to the car for this race weekend. Tricky conditions with the wind, the temperatures, of course, are here as well. I have to assume those upgrades are positive, and this is all part of the journey.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the team has pushed like crazy to try and bring those upgrades here. I don't think it's the best track to have these upgrades on, but it's always good. It's a small gain, but it's not a big one. But hopefully next week it should be a bit more of a step. So, but again, I think if we are P3 today, especially considering such fine margins with P4, the upgrades helped.
Well, congratulations on third place for the Grand Prix tomorrow.
Thank you.
George, second on the grid for the Grand Prix tomorrow. I think a little bit like Charles, if that was offered to you before, I know you always want to be number one, you guys, but you would have probably taken that.
Yeah, 100%. I think if anybody said we'd be within half a second of the McLarens, we'd have taken it, because we would have thought that would have been sort of P3 on the grid. So to be second on the grid is a bonus. Congrats to Oscar, great lap, and excited for tomorrow now.
Well, you mentioned that gap, much closer than half a second.
Yeah.
And you have the data available to you as the session unfolds. So where have the strides been made, and where is that very small gap that you need to make up?
I've got to be honest, I think the strides were being made with the nighttime coming in and the track temperature getting a little bit cooler. We saw it this morning in practice 3 when it was roasting hot, the McLarens were down the road. And now as this session unfolded, we just seem to get quicker and quicker. So yeah, lining up P2 is great chance tomorrow, but I think being realistic, it'll be a challenge to fight with Oscar.
Okay, well done in the second place anyway for tomorrow.
Cheers, guys.
And Oscar, first of all, congratulations, your 50th Grand Prix start, and it doesn't get any better than pole position. You just, I don't want to say dominated the session, but your name was at the top of the times all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, I felt confident out there pretty much all weekend, to be honest. FP1 was an experience for us all, I think. It felt more like a rally car than an F1 car, but from then on, I felt really comfortable with the car, and FP3 we had...
Oh my God.